off the basement so it doesn't compromise the structure of your home.
And?
By not giving yucky mold and mildew a place to grow.
Pretty good.
Dad, I wasn't finished.
Oh, sorry.
And J&D waterproofing can save you money.
Do tell.
By saving you from having to replace your basement appliances from water damage.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Got water problems? Don't cry. Call 1-800-VERY-DRY.
J&D Waterproofing. 1-800-VERY-DRY.
If you owed $30 trillion and you didn't have the money to pay it off, you need to make a lot more money, right? Well, now America's debt is more than $30 trillion, and right now taxes are at historically low levels, so it doesn't take a genius to realize taxes will probably go up. Now, think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are low, or later when rates are much higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. That's why Kurt Knodig at Accurate Solutions Groups has a free guide called Are You Paying Too Much in Taxes to help you determine what's best for you. To get your copy of Are You Paying Too Much in Taxes, call or text TAX to 412-515-3555. That's TAX to 412-515-3555. Get this free guide from Kurt Knodig at Accurate Solutions Group now. 412-515-3555. Investment advisory services offered through ASG Investment Management, LLC. Our firm may not give tax advice.
A freeze warning remains in effect late tonight through tomorrow morning. Becoming clear and cold tonight. Early vegetation can be damaged by a freeze, the low 31. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 56. Plenty of clouds tomorrow night. Couple of late night showers, low 37. A shower in spots Wednesday morning. Otherwise sun and clouds at a high of 56. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm forecaster Drew Shannon.
Welcome to another edition of The Ride Home with John and Kathy, live from the Salem-Pittsburgh studios. And now here are your hosts, John Hall and Kathy Emmons.
Well, good afternoon. Happy Monday to you. Hope it's been a glorious day for you. All is well here atop Green Tree Hill. Kath, good to see you as well.
Pretty gray day, John, but it's picking up right now.
Yeah, looks fine out there. Yeah.
It was pretty down in the dumps this morning. Didn't you think?
Yeah, it's part of April, is it not?
I guess it is.
April showers.
I guess it is.
We're waiting for May flowers.
I heard you took a trip over the weekend.
I did. I went, spent the weekend with some friends. We went to Lancaster.
Lancaster.
Mm-hmm. We went to Lancaster. And we went to Sight and Sound, where we saw Moses.
Which you and I had seen before with a group of our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Took a trip, 5 years ago?
5 or 6 years ago, yeah. Mm-hmm. And saw it again, loved it. Highly recommended. The stagecraft off the charts. Really beautiful piece of theater.
Anything different than when we saw it?
Yeah, several things. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it'd be worth seeing again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's 5 or 6 years. Like, I remember a lot of it, right? Most of it slipped away. But no, really, well worth a visit. If you've never been, this is not a commercial, but I'm just saying, if you've never been to Sight and Sound.
If you've never been to Sight or Sound.
Right. I would highly recommend you do both of them.
Yeah, at the same time.
Very much so, yeah. And then the following day, we spent the night in Lancaster. And we had a little breakfast and then walked around the market in downtown Lancaster.
I've never done that.
What?
Never done that.
Lovely. Really. The architecture in that inner city is
beautiful.
Off the charts and incredible. One church after another. Just really, I love the town. Really, really excellent.
I'd love to go back again.
Mm-hmm.
We could have, my husband show us around.
Right. He's
Being born
he's a
and
native,
bred.
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you were there, we went and saw, which one is not there anymore, a woman did a chalk talk, which I've only seen once.
Oh, my gosh. I thought that was going to be so silly, and it was so incredible.
It was incredible.
It was incredible, and she's not doing that anymore.
No. Also, we took the railroad, which we did not do.
You did the Strasburg Railroad?
No, we did not.
Oh, you
no,
didn't?
No,
okay.
I didn't, no.
Love the Strasburg Railroad.
But very nice. And,
on a sunny day in the spring, the Strasburg Railroad, it's the most gorgeous part of Pennsylvania.
Oh, my gosh.
It is
rolling hills.
So beautiful.
Do you remember when we were there, we saw like sheep running by? I mean, that was so cool.
Oh, and it's so green. Mm-hmm. It's just,
verdant.
It's really, really spectacular.
Lush, yeah.
Now, if you're there, on July 20th and it's 102, which I've also done.
Really?
You can't really enjoy the green beauty around you because you're barely alive.
Central Pennsylvania. Is it fair to call that? Or is
No,
that, is
Eastern.
it Eastern Pennsylvania? A lot of Philadelphians there.
That's the only
Philly
drawback.
vibe.
Yeah, you have to kind of overlook that.
Yeah, my wife was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, this is Philly vibe." She was like, "Oh, okay." Say no more.
Yeah.
And then we were just fine.
That's different.
Anyway, really nice weekend and happy to be away. And hey, thanks for being here on Friday.
Yeah, we had a fun time on the Friday show.
Very nice.
Yeah, we have a great show ahead of us today. In the 5 o'clock hour of the program, we're going to talk about the Tree of Life case. The trial's getting underway today.
Jury selection starts today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ryan Burge will be with us. We'll talk about losing faith in institutions, and does that correspond with people losing faith in God?
Very
we know
interesting.
people don't have the same, people don't feel about the Boy Scouts the way they did. People don't feel the same way about the Catholic Church that they did. People don't feel the same way about the country club. I mean, just a whole lot of things.
Right.
You name the institution, people are down on it. Does that mean people are down on God too?
Right. Yep. And hey, I also want to send a shout out. We were yesterday down at First Presbyterian Church in downtown Pittsburgh for the 250th celebration. Right, the oldest church here in the city of Pittsburgh. It was wonderful. Pastor Tom Hall, he's a friend of ours. He delivered a beautiful sermon, a great celebration. So fabulous there.
Yeah, and more about that coming up at 4:25 today.
Oh, that's very nice. News Day?
News
a few
Day.
things going on, right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Should we say the Bucks are in first place?
Yep.
First place, Pirates. I know it's only April.
It doesn't matter.
No, I was all
Were they
geeked.
in first place last year?
No,
Ever?
they weren't. No.
Nope.
No,
That
2
just
consecutive 100-loss seasons.
Let me be happy.
It's like giving a man dying of thirst a jug of water. You
Fine.
go glug, 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 glug.
Fine, I'll take it.
Yeah, very much so.
Take it.
All right, without further ado, Kath, news stories for the day. Please give us the top 4 at 4.
For Monday, April 24th, 2023. As I already said, number 1, jury selection underway in the Tree of Life massacre trial. Shortly before 10 a.m., as we remember back in October of 2018, the defendant entered a synagogue right there on Shady Avenue in Wilkins, armed with an AR-15, 3 handguns. He began killing people who had gathered early. This man is 50 years old. He faces 63 counts, including 11 counts each of obstruction of the free exercise of religious beliefs resulting in death and committing a hate crime resulting in death. He has pleaded not guilty. In court filings, his lawyers said, and I'm reading here from the Wall Street Journal, that he had offered to plead guilty and serve multiple life sentences if prosecutors would agree not to seek the death penalty. Now, that's interesting because 7 of the 9 families whose relatives were murdered wrote a letter in 2021 to Attorney General Merrick Garland saying that they support the death penalty for Mr. Bowers. People in the 3 congregations differ, though. They don't agree on it. The board of Dor Hadash sent a letter to Mr. Garland opposing the death penalty in the case. The trial comes as anti-Semitic incidents are on the rise. 3,697 such incidents in 2022, which is a 36% increase from the previous year. Number 2. Fighting in Sudan, John, between forces loyal to 2 rival generals has triggered a mass exodus of foreigners. A number of countries, including the U.S., the U.K., Sweden, Spain, the Netherlands, Japan, Italy, Germany, France, and Canada are airlifting and evacuating diplomats, embassy staff, and others from the capital. Both the U.S. and Canadian governments have also announced temporary suspensions of operations at their embassies in Khartoum. 16,000 Americans are still there.
Really?
16,000. Now, a lot of these apparently are people that grew up there, work there, families are there, they want to stay there. So it's a little bit dicey for the State Department, I guess, to figure out exactly how many are there and what to do. And then, of course, the Sudanese civilians are trapped in the crossfire, many of them risking their lives trying to get the heck out of the country. You can read more about that in pretty much the news site of your choice, but I took this from ABC. Number 3. The Supreme Court today, John, agreed to take up a pair of court fights involving public officials who block their critics on social media. And whether elected officials can be sued by users who lost the ability to interact with those accounts. The issue of public officials blocking followers who criticize them on Facebook and or Twitter, and whether this crosses a constitutional line, was at the center of a lawsuit brought against former President Trump in 2017. Back then, a federal appeals court in New York ruled that Trump violated the First Amendment when he blocked his critics on Twitter. The former president asked the Supreme Court to weigh in 2020, but the High Court ordered the case to be thrown out, and then Trump, of course, is out of office. The case was moot. Now they have the chance to clarify how government officials can interact with constituents when it hears two cases involving two local officials, one from Southern California and Michigan, who blocked voters from their Facebook and Twitter pages. It's from CBS News. And number 4, in case you've had your head in a hole, the Pirates are in first place, riding an MLB best 7-game winning streak and swept back-to-back series for the first time in almost 5 years, off to their best start in 3 decades. And that's your top 4.
Very nice.
16-7.
I know it's only April.
Let me be happy.
Thank you.
Let me be happy is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's super exciting. 9 of their last 11. They've gone 13-4 since April 7th. They're off today.
It's a long, long haul, right?
Yes.
I mean, the first week of October, let's see where things stand. But there's reason for optimism. That's all. Just a little bit of fresh air.
Okay, let me give you a little comparison to last year. I'm reading here from the Trib. Are you ready?
Yes.
The Pirates didn't clinch their 16th win last year until May 18th.
May 18th. Okay,
in their 37th game of the season.
April 24th.
Only the Tampa Bay Rays have more wins this season in the Major League.
And they went on a 13 streak, right?
Yeah, that was pretty impressive.
Yes, it is.
That was pretty impressive. And Derek Shelton's contract extended beyond this season.
Excellent. Yeah, come on, let's go Bucks, right? It just feels good to talk a little baseball.
Great.
Pitching. That's the key.
Starting pitching.
Man.
I mean,
lights out.
Beyond 6 innings. Repeatedly, over and over. I'm getting used to it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just getting used to it.
Yeah,
whatever we were doing last year when some guy would come in and pitch 1 2/3, and then they have to bring somebody else in. We're not doing that right now.
Feels good. It really does.
Thrilling.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. As we do every Monday, we go directly to the White House, where Greg Clugston from SRN News will give us a look at the headlines in and around the nation's capital and around the globe. It's the Ride Home for Pittsburgh's Christian Talk on 101.5 Word FM.
101.5 WORD.
Well done, good and faithful servant. Every believer longs to hear that from Jesus. Dr. Charles Stanley has now heard those words from the Lord face to face after faithfully serving to the age of 90 and receiving his heavenly reward April 18th. We treasure the life and ministry of Dr. Charles Stanley and invite you to pay tribute to his influence on you and your family's life by logging on to our station website.
Share your appreciation for the life and ministry of Dr. Charles Stanley by going to wordfm.com.
Moms, wow, aren't they special? Doesn't that word just warm your heart and make you feel loved? Hi, it's me, Marcia from the Springhouse, and I am so blessed to get to work side by side with my mom every day in our family business. And right now, my mom and I are planning for a special day for you and your mom on Mother's Day. Every year on Mother's Day, we barbecue chicken quarters over the open pit outside with our secret butter sauce. Baked beans, corn pudding, coleslaw, macaroni salad, ho-ho cake, and more will abound inside to go along with that tasty, tender chicken. When I was a teenager and we first started cooking for crowds, all my mom wanted for Mother's Day was for us 5 kids to help get ready to make this a special day for our guests. So bring your family and come hungry to enjoy the wonderful farm fresh meal that we started all those years ago. Oh yeah, live music and free cones for moms too. Let us share a little of our farm with you. The Springhouse in 84 PA, 724-228-3339 or springhousemarket.com.
It took a panicked run on a major bank to lead to the second biggest bank failure in U.S. history. And Moody's just downgraded the entire U.S. banking system from stable to negative. Just a reminder why many people diversify their portfolios with something tangible, something that doesn't need bailing out, something that can't vanish into thin air. Learn the truth in Swiss America's shocking report, The Secret War on Cash. This all-out war against cash is a war against the Constitution, against all freedom-loving Americans. You must read The Secret War on Cash. Get your free copy by calling or texting 800-630-1495. That's 800-630-1495. This all-out war on cash, digital forms of currency too, is growing daily. So please get and read The Secret War on Cash, free to Salem listeners by calling or texting now at 800-630-1495. Make sure you mention Salem when you call or text 800-630-1495.
Every summer, Pine Valley Camp changes lives, not just for the more than 100 underserved kids who attend each week, but for the many high school and college-age volunteers and staff who work with them as lifeguards, cooks, camp counselors, and more. If you're 16 to 25, apply now and come help make an impact and change lives in a fun, safe Christian family environment. Apply today at pinevalleycamp.org. Pine Valley Camp, rebuilding broken lives through Jesus Christ in Beaver County. Camp opens mid-June.
Well, I guess on a riff from an old advertising campaign, does she or doesn't she? Only her hairdresser knows for sure. Maybe that's Joe Biden.
Wow.
Will he or won't he? Only his hairdresser knows for sure. Greg Clugston joins us from SRN News for the White House. Greg, welcome back. Always happy to have you along here on a Monday.
Thank you, John. I'm not sure I even know who the president's hairdresser is to ask.
He may not. Well, I'm sure he has.
Listen, I feel like if you don't know Greg, then there's just no point in knowing.
Right. Yeah.
I really feel that way.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
Well, okay, regardless of who cuts the guy's hair, new polls in the country don't seem to want him and former President Trump to be squaring off.
Yeah, it's
Again.
interesting. There have been a couple of polls in just the last few days. AP, NORC had a poll last week. NBC News within the last 24 hours in a poll. And this NBC poll shows that, not only do most Americans not want to see a rematch from 2020 come out again in 2024 between Biden and Trump, but what's interesting is when it comes to Biden, and we've talked about this before, but it continues to be reinforced with the survey after survey. A lot of people just don't want Joe Biden to run again, and that's not only Republicans or independents. It's about half of Democrats who continue to get surveyed as well. So according to NBC News, an overwhelming 70% of those that they asked, including 51% of Democrats, don't think that Biden should run for a second term. And nearly half of those respondents cite his age as a main concern. He is 80 years old. He would be 82 on the next inauguration day if he were to be reelected. And if he served a full second term, 86 years old at the end of that term. So it's interesting because age is a factor. It has been talked about. It's one of those sensitive issues. Obviously, in politics, it's also sensitive, but it's out there.
Right. I mean, you don't want to be accused of ageism, but the 86 years old, that is very, very old. I think very few people are operating at the top of their game, let alone running the country in the world.
There's an age limit on when an airline pilot has to retire, right? I think it's 75, maybe?
No, I think it's much younger than
really?
that.
Okay. Yeah. Because he's responsible for the lives of so many people.
Right.
Or she, forgive me, responsible for the lives of so many people. You could argue the president responsible for many more lives than that. I don't know. Is there any sense? Okay. Do we know for sure that he's going to declare Biden?
Okay, all the signs are that he's going to. In fact, it's what the campaign calls, or in campaigns in general, call a soft launch, meaning we tomorrow are expecting to see a video announcement. Really? With Biden's voice, with his picture, with other images and symbolism of what a campaign would run. Just a few minutes ago at the White House following an event, he was asked by reporters, and he said, "I told you I was going to run, and stay tuned. You'll find out real soon." And so we've been hearing since late last week that tomorrow is likely the day for this, what they call a soft launch, this video, and that at some point later there would be a formal speech where the president would also be announcing his plans. But essentially by announcing tomorrow, then that allows him to start fundraising if he wants to. I mean,
I'm with most of the people in the poll, Greg. I mean, whether it's Biden or Trump, I don't want to see a repeat again. I think it's time to turn the page.
Reset?
Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem to be a prevailing attitude right now. On the age issue, it's interesting because the New York Times had an editorial this weekend talking about this, and they said that, in the past, and Biden has been asked directly about this over the last year or two a couple of times, and his stock answer is, watch me. In other words, he says, I'm fit, I'm able to do the job, watch me, observe, and tell me if I can't do it. Well, the New York Times opinion page, editorial page, says that the president has really given voters very few chances to do that, especially in terms of formal press conferences, taking tough questions and follow-up questions, and not just these on the way out to the helicopter or at the end of an event, just taking one or two questions and he gives a 5 or 6 word answer.
Right.
And this White House has been criticized for really reining in the president's interaction, not only just with the public, but also with, especially with reporters in the national media as well. And so you get the New York Times saying that we need to see more of an active president, especially going forward in the campaign.
Right. So there you are in the White House, Greg. I mean, has the president held any significant press conferences in the years he's been president, President Biden?
He has held 1 or 2. Now, oftentimes we'll have a dual press conference when you have a visiting head of state.
Sure.
And typically there are only 4 questions at those events. 2 questions for the president and 2 for the guest who's there. But I remember there being 1 or 2, but no more than that. In fact, the New York Times goes on to say that in terms of regular formal press conferences that have been tabulated by people that cover and tabulate those kinds of events, that Biden falls woefully short compared to his modern predecessors over the last, say, 20, 25 years.
Right, which would say that his handlers don't want him out there speaking, extemporaneously, because you never know what's going to happen, come out of his mouth.
And the history,
what's interesting too.
Go ahead, Greg.
I'm sorry, Kathy, but if you think rewind here to the last election, of course we were still really sort of in the throes of the pandemic, and the Biden campaign, the presidential campaign, was very scaled back in terms of crowds and events and that kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see what their strategy is this time. Obviously, the pandemic is not what it was back leading up to the 2020 election. And he not only is going to be a candidate for president, but also still holding down the job at the same time.
I don't know, Greg. To me, when I think about another Trump-Biden election, I think it just shows the poverty of the two parties and what, the other options that there are in the country. I don't know. There has to be a deeper pool than what we're already seeing.
Sure. When you look on the Democratic side, of course, when you have an incumbent president who is making all sorts of noise about running for re-election, that essentially freezes the party. Now, you've got the Marianne Williamsons and you have the RFK Juniors. Those are essentially symbolic, runs for the president. So, Biden is going to be essentially unopposed. On the Republican side this time around, we only have a couple of or so, serious names of candidates who have, put their names in the hat. People like Nikki Haley, and then others that are still thinking about this in terms of Senator Tim Scott, Mike Pence. And you've got also former Governor Chris Christie, who is really taking a look at this. He doesn't think Ron DeSantis is maybe going to pan out too well in the GOP. Christie is really considering if there was a lane for him. But even when you mention those names, Kathy, a lot of them have run or tried before, or maybe aren't considered viable candidates this time around. And it just begs the question, who else is there?
Right. Well, as they say, time will tell, right? I mean, the next 5-6 months, things will start to crystallize for sure. Let's move forward, Greg, and talk about what's happening about the abortion pill access. This has been before the Supreme Court. A lot of people have opined about this. Please fill this in.
Sure. Really, the quick update on that, John, from what we talked about last week is it reached the Supreme Court, and the issue before the justices, not the Texas court case itself in terms of the merits of that case. What the justices were deciding last week, and they made the announcement on Friday evening, had to do with whether or not restrictions that lower courts were wanting to place on access to the abortion pill should be put in place while the litigation plays out. And the justices said, no, the abortion access should remain as is while these issues are going through the court. So the Texas case is still active. It's going to have to go through the normal process. But the Supreme Court weighed in to say, while that process takes place, the access to the abortion pill mifepristone will remain as it was.
I see.
And, of course, we read that most of the abortions done in America are done through that pill.
Sure.
Sure. And, you know, the heart of the Texas case has to do with whether or not the FDA approval process is valid concerning this drug. And a lot of pro-lifers and others are essentially arguing that there are safety issues involved here, aside from the fact of whether, you know, abortion should be legal or not in the first place. But the procedure of approving this drug is really at stake. And then, of course, there have been some rules changes ever since that drug was first approved by the FDA 25 years ago in terms of its access and availability to be mailed out to people. And a lot of people simply get this drug in the mail now. So, yeah, the accessibility has really changed quite a bit over the last couple of decades.
SRN News White House correspondent Greg Clugston is with us. Greg, in the remaining couple of minutes here, let's talk about the debt ceiling. There's been a lot of conversation about that. Is this going to happen? This feels as though it happens every couple of years. Mm-hmm. We reach a stalemate. There's this little back and forth, and then they acquiesce, and they just kick the can down the road. We're at that point once again.
We are. It's the threat of a debt default, and that crisis, and it would be a crisis by anybody's account, essentially, who knows about this. And the issue is the Congress needing to approve a lift of the ceiling, an increase of the borrowing cap or amount to pay the bills that the country has already racked up. And what the Republicans in the House are wanting to do and have done is put together a plan that would do that, but also have some strings attached. They want to make some specific budget cuts. They want to go to some of the legislation that President Biden has signed into law and take out some of those key components. Of course, the White House, it opposes this. It doesn't want any strings attached. It simply wants a clean vote by lawmakers to say, yes, we're going to raise the debt ceiling to this. And this has to happen here in the next couple of months. And here's the thing, John and Kathy, this proposal from Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker, and the Republicans that was announced last week, it's probably going to get voted on in the House this week. And if it passes, it would go to the Senate, where nobody expects it to pass. And even if it were to pass there, it would get rejected by President Biden at the White House. So this is symbolic in a lot of ways. It lays down some markers for Republicans, but ultimately the two sides, the House Republicans especially, and President Biden at the White House, they're going to have to sit down and negotiate this.
Right. So if I ran my household budget like this, I'd have no debt ceiling. I just have to get a second job. Mm-hmm. Right.
And a third job.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure. Greg, after about 18 minutes of airtime with you, let's finally get onto the stuff that really matters.
Brass tacks.
Yeah, exactly. As a fan of the Washington Nationals and Seattle Mariners, you might not be aware of the first place Pittsburgh Pirates.
First place, you might say.
I did first place.
Hey,
that's first
congratulations.
place. Second best record in the MLB, in case you need to know more about that. Are you tracking with our team?
Not really.
You know, I haven't been tracking. Are you in the National League Central?
We are.
What kind of question is that?
We really should be in the Eastern Division, but we are oddly
we're
in the Central.
That's right.
Pennsylvania.
Well, at least I got the right division.
Yeah, you did.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You want to give us any?
You got nothing.
Happy news, like any congratulatory anything?
Got nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Not one thing.
No, I'm happy for Pittsburgh.
God bless you.
Boy, that took a lot to get that out of you, though.
Well, I know, and here's the reason. I grew up as an American League sports team fan.
So that's a whole other, like a universe, the National League, isn't it?
So
we're the same way.
Not that Exactly. I really don't have any gripes against the National League teams. I just don't follow them as closely as what's happening over in the AL.
Be different if we were Yankee fans.
Yeah, I mean, until this season, and now you're going to be following.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
go Bucks is what we're saying, Greg.
There we go.
And how about? Do they say "Let's go Nats"? Is that the deal?
Let's go Nats.
What do they say in Seattle? Let's go
Mariners.
Let's go M's.
M's.
Oh,
it's the M's.
Is it the M's?
All right, that's fine.
Their slogan the last couple of years has been "See Us Rise" with SEA as the "See Us Rise."
Little play on words there. I see.
Okay.
Well, it's global warming, so everything's rising.
Yeah.
Everything's getting all wet.
Nice to see you, Greg.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Greg. Greatly appreciated. Greg Clugston, SRN News White House correspondent. Information about SRN News, wordfm.com or srnnews.com.
Can you hear it? The cry of those living in darkness, in desperate need of hope. As their cries go up, we here at Cornerstone Television long to answer. We believe God is calling each of us for such a time as this to rise up and come to the battle line with the hope of Jesus Christ. Don't miss Cornerstone's Hope Arising special programming with Pastor Jim, Jason Howard, Matt Sorger, Apostle Connie Brooks, and Jay Gilbert. This is a special invitation for you to come to the battle line with us, to link arms and see hope arise. Our mission to reach the nations remains strong, but we can't fulfill our mission without you. Tune in April 24th through 28th at 8 p.m. and discover how to be a strong force of light in the darkness. Watch Hope Arising on Cornerstone Television Network. That's Verizon Fios Channel 505 or Channel 805 on Comcast Xfinity.
In business, everything your employees do impacts your brand, including what they wear. Cintas has high-performance workplace apparel for almost every job imaginable. From work shirts and pants, to polos and khakis, to Oxfords or T-shirts, these clothes move, breathe, and look great. Your team gets the styles they like, you convey the image you want. And Cintas service includes weekly laundry and delivery. To learn more, visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Here's how we long for Skechers hands-free slip-in footwear.
The world has gone hands-free. However, if you want to put on a pair of sneakers, you still need to bend down and help your feet in. Until now. Introducing Skechers hands-free slip-in footwear. You don't need to reach down to help your heel in. You just step into them and off you go. So what's the secret? Well, there's a special smooth comfort pillow in the heel that helps your foot slide into place. And they stay on just like a pair of laced-up sneakers.
Get hands-free slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Terry Wargenis here from the Gateway Clipper. Celebrate Mom with a family aboard a Mother's Day cruise, sailing Sunday, May 14th. All moms will receive a special gift from all of us at the Clipper. For reservations, visit gatewayclipper.com.
Roofing, siding, or remodeling?
Want it done right, call doing it right.
724 New Roof.
101.5 WORD-FM Pittsburgh. On your smart speaker by saying, play the word Pittsburgh. And on your phone via the Word FM mobile app, iHeart, TuneIn, and Odyssey.
Thousands of young people are dying from counterfeit prescription drugs laced with lethal doses of fentanyl.
Never take a pill unless it comes from your pharmacist. We lost my 18-year-old son who had a very bright future ahead of him, and it was stolen.
Just one counterfeit pill laced with fentanyl can kill. Visit onepillkilled.org.
onepillkilled.org.
onepillkilled.org to learn more.
A freeze warning remains in effect late tonight through tomorrow morning. Becoming clear and cold tonight. Early vegetation can be damaged by a freeze, the low 31. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 56. Plenty of clouds tomorrow night. Couple of late night showers, low 37. A shower in spots Wednesday morning, otherwise sun and clouds at a high of 56. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm forecaster Drew Shannon.
Yesterday morning, ventured downtown Pittsburgh to 6th Avenue to celebrate the 250th anniversary of First Presbyterian Church.
Yes, that's a correct number.
Yes.
250th.
Is there anything else in Pittsburgh that's 250 years old?
I don't think so.
Maybe the Fort Duquesne.
Yeah, maybe.
250 years, a wonderful celebration. Reverend Tom Hall, you may know Tom Hall, been a guest on our show over the many years. Fabulous. What an incredibly gorgeous church. I get chills, seriously. I mean, the music, the scripture, the preaching, the people, just off the charts. Absolutely wonderful.
I'm so happy that you were able to do that.
Sure was.
That so many. And then after the service?
After the service, this was RSVP. You could have, like Tom said, I think he joined us 2 weeks ago, the faithful of First Pres came out of the church and they were escorted up 6th Avenue with a bagpipe cadre, drums, fife. They walked up 6th Avenue to the William Penn where they had a luncheon. I did not go to lunch.
That sounds wonderful.
Oh, my gosh.
What a little jewel box of a place.
Gorgeous church.
I mean,
stained glass.
It's just the
wood.
The doors at the front of the sanctuary are out of control beautiful.
I took the
I have it here.
50 years ago, Billy Graham preached there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So it has been the site of many, many people walking through those front doors and calling First Presbyterian Church my church.
Yeah.
So congratulations to First Presbyterian.
Wow. Well, that's super exciting. And I'm sure you saw people from all over Pittsburgh.
My gosh.
People from, I know that there are people from 26 states or something.
People came in from California, Yellowstone, all over the place. People who, this was part of my spiritual life.
Yeah.
And wanted to show up to honor the church. So just really excellent.
Well, that's really terrific. Congratulations to everybody there. We love Tom Hall.
Sure do.
Everybody, I'm sure, there is taking a day of relaxation
yes.
after all that celebration yesterday.
Coming up next, the Book of Lamentations. C.J. Williams will join us from RPTS. Straight ahead. It's the ride home.
101.5 WORD.
This week on Insight for Living, Chuck Swindoll starts a brand new series about marriage and the family.
Where do we start if we hope to have a strong and healthy marriage? We need to seek the advice of the one who originated marriage, God Himself.
Chuck Swindoll is talking about restoring your family's foundation this week on Insight for Living.
Tomorrow morning at 8 on 101.5 WORD.
Doing it right. Roofing, siding, remodeling. Specializing in roof replacements for churches and places of worship for nearly 40 years. For the church roof replacement specialists in Pittsburgh and the surrounding area, call 724-NEW-ROOF today for a free quote.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
People ask me sometimes, Lance, I'm worried about my finances and I feel bad because I should be worried, right? I realize that inflation is going to be eating up money. I've got to do something to get around this crazy stock market and Biden's spending spree. Gold has, since the beginning of time, been the resource that God's people have relied on. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, is what the prophet Haggai said during a time of great shaking. To protect your retirement, I recommend that you diversify your 401k or IRA right out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with Gold IRA from the Birch Gold Group. I want you to text the words FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 and get a free info kit on gold IRAs. There's no strings attached to this, so just text FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 and see what I've discovered here about gold and its ability to stabilize your investment and create a storage of wealth for you in unsteady times.
Roofing, siding, or remodeling? 724-NEW-ROOF.
One of the books in the Old Testament that I think gets short shrift a lot of the time is the Book of Lamentations. I think in large part, we're just not familiar with the kind of literature it is. So we go to read it and we're like, wait a minute, what? So it's not narrative. Right. A lot of people, like I used to be, don't read poetry. So it doesn't make any sense. Right. And a lot of people don't want to read a book about grieving and sadness. And you can tell by the title that that's what it is, right? It's a lament. It's a bunch of laments that are put together.
Hey, I really am in the mood for some lament.
I think that when things go wrong in our lives, if we've only read 1 Corinthians 13, or we've only read about the resurrection, or we've only read 1 John, then we miss out on, we don't have a biblical basis for what happens to us when we struggle. Yeah. If we just focus on happy biblical passages, then first of all, we probably think that our life is going to be only happy. But second of all, we only resonate with the Bible in happy times without realizing that there is a huge compendium of portions in the Bible which help us when we grieve.
Yes, we all suffer. It's good to have like-minded suffering surround us. Dr. C.J. Williams is with us. He's professor of Old Testament studies at Reformed Presbyterian Theological Seminary here in the East End part of the city of Pittsburgh. His new work is called The Shadow of Christ in the Book of Lamentations. C.J., welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Can you talk, C.J., first about what kind of literature Lamentations is?
Well, Lamentations is prophetic literature, but it's also it's a very unique book. It is a lament, and that stands in a category all its own. And I believe its purpose ultimately is to give us an example of grieving with faith, and to basically instruct us how to find hope in the midst of our trials.
This is very timely, is it not? CJ, is this something that you picked up in the thread of the pandemic and thought, I need to inform and engage about Lamentations? It feels as though the world's hell in a handbasket.
Well, yes, indeed. I think it's a useful study because we're told in Scripture that we do not sorrow as those who have no hope, and so the Scripture must give us some direction on how to grieve with hope and how to find hope within our trials. And I think Lamentations is a really big part of that. It really gives us some solid direction in that. And so, yeah, I mean, the world around us, we know grieving people. We grieve ourselves in many different situations of life. And this is just an impactful book. It really is just very encouraging to those, especially who are dealing with grief in their life.
Now, I'm glad you brought this up because, not to get too personal, but I do know that as you're researching and writing the book, you yourself suffered a double loss.
Absolutely, that's true. So I preached through the Book of Lamentations some time ago, and was really drawn into the book and just fascinated by it. During that sermon series, my father passed away, and I began work on the book shortly thereafter. My mother passed away, and actually it was I lost another one close to me the very week that the book came out. My brother passed away.
Oh my gosh!
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
And that happened all within under 2 years, and so the Lord really brought me and my family through a hard season of life, and just in His providence, I was immersed in the Book of Lamentations. I found great comfort in it. I really did.
What does it mean that you found great comfort in it? I'm thinking of people who are listening to the program. Maybe they haven't never read the Bible, or they haven't gone to church, and they're thinking, well, what comfort does reading a super old book about grief do for you?
Yeah, it is a difficult book, and but one of the lessons it teaches us is about finding hope in the midst of our trials, and showing us really what it is and where to find it. Hope isn't just optimism that things will get better, but hope is the confidence that grace will prevail because of the gracious character of God. And I think that theme is woven throughout the book, but it reaches its pinnacle, of course, in Lamentations 3, the very famous verse, His compassions fail not, they're new every morning, great is your faithfulness. Therefore, I hope in Him. Right? The faithfulness of God means He's true to His promises, and that's the foundation of our hope. And I think that's one of the great themes of this book, and to recognize that hope it's not merely a change of outlook, but it's a transformation of our hearts as we learn to really find rest in God's faithful character and his sure promises.
Yes. And that would define our Christian walk, would it not? I mean, without hope, then we fall off the ends. But we do need hope to sustain us to see the other day, the next day. And, of course, eternal salvation in Christ is our great hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, the amazing thing about the Book of Lamentations, which Scripture reinforces elsewhere, is that when we do experience grief or loss, those are particular seasons in which God does reveal his grace to us and his goodness to us in new and unexpected ways, and does give us hope.
We're talking with C.J. Williams about his brand new work called The Shadow of Christ in the Book of Lamentations. C.J. is from the Reformed Presbyterian Theological Seminary. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But C.J., so what you've just told us about the loss of your parents and your brother, deeply intimate, as you're going through the Book of Lamentations and writing The Shadow of Christ, it had to give you strength to know that so many others have gone before you, and there on the page is the strength that was necessary for these deep periods of mourning, which I'm sure you're still going through.
Absolutely. That we're reassured that we're not alone in the experience of grief and hardship in this world. And sometimes we isolate ourselves and we feel like we are alone.
Yeah.
But to recognize that believers go through this, all people go through this, and the Lord ministers to our hearts in these situations in very particular ways, and we have one another to reach out to, to find that support that we have in others of like-minded, of faith and like precious faith. We have each other. And I think this book brings that out as well, that we do not feel alone, but we have great resources in God's grace and in God's people.
Mm. CJ, you mentioned that it's a difficult book. There are some books in the scriptures that are more straightforward than this. What's the value in kind of making your way through a hard book? I think a lot of people now, if you didn't, have a liberal arts education, I had a literature focus when I was in college, so I had to make my way through hard books. But a lot of people now don't have to do that. So what's the value in it? And do you think it's worth it for the average person?
It is a difficult book, and it's a book about grief and suffering, and it's an Old Testament book written in some ways it's difficult to understand. It's not the book that people instinctively turn to. You mentioned earlier, we want to read happy passages, we want to turn to Philippians, and but this book is a real gem, and it's one of those books that I think a lot of people have a lot of room left to rediscover. And it really presents the gospel in just a profound way. And it's so rewarding to dig into a book like this that maybe you haven't ever read, or maybe only read once and just sort of shrugged your shoulders and said, I don't know what that's about. But to really pause and to give it some time, this is maybe to a lot of people an undiscovered treasure. And it's so rewarding because it's a book like no other, and I think it provides such a very specific need to the believer when it speaks about grief and how to grieve with hope. And we need to hear that. We need to hear that at several points in our lives. We will find ourselves in that place of suffering, loss, and grief.
Yes. We're talking with Dr. C.J. Williams from Reformed Presbyterian Theological Seminary. Dr. Williams, let's talk about RPTS. There you are on Penn Avenue in the East End part of the city. I mean, I've driven by it, I'm sure, thousands and thousands of times. It's in some ways, I would say, it's probably little known here in the city of Pittsburgh. Can you talk about RPTS and what you offer to students?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the best kept secrets of the city. It is a wonderful place to work. Our motto is study under pastors. And so all the professors there are either current pastors or former pastors. And so our purpose is to really bring that practical ministry aspect to the classroom. We don't just teach theology and biblical studies. We do that. But our real mission is to train men and women for various kinds of service in the kingdom of God, various ministries. And so we bring that to the classroom. That's our hope, and every year we graduate men and women and send them out and doing kingdom work, and that's just very, very gratifying. So it's a wonderful place to work and to study. I've enjoyed it. It's not just classroom learning, but A lot of mentoring and discipleship goes on there. And it's just a real blessing, and it has been to me for my 17 years there.
Fabulous. What I'm struck about by when I hear about RPTS is that several of Kath and I's friends have earned a theology degree from RPTS, and it's been one class at a time, 1 year,
for a
1
long
year.
time, yeah.
And there's someone who finally, gets their seminary degree, and they've been attending RPTS for a decade or more.
That's true. So we have a Master of Divinity degree, and some people turn it into a Master of Infinity degree. Yes, we've had students there that have taken just one class in the evening here and there. And before they know it, a decade has gone by.
Yes.
But we love it. We have full-time students, we have part-time students, just students who are curious to learn a little more on their own and take one class here and one class there, and that kind of diversifies the student body.
Fabulous.
But yeah, we love it when people just come and say, hey, I want to take this class just to learn a little bit more for my own edification.
Excellent. Well, listen, Dr. Williams, congratulations on the release of The Shadow of Christ in the Book of Lamentations. The book is available now from Crown and Covenant Publications, The Shadow of Christ. Dr. C.J. Williams, and for your 17-plus years at RPTS, and for sending out the call. I mean, RPTS, you can find it easily on the web, rpts.edu. Highly recommend you stop by, rpts.edu. Dr. Williams, thanks so much again.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Pleasure was ours, truly.
I'm excited about this book.
Me too. Do we not need to dig deeper?
Yes, do we not?
Into our own
we really
grief.
do. Coming up next, how much it costs to build a new house in each state.
Hi friends, Tom Lewis for Cross International with a great big thank you to everyone who gave in our campaign to reach, rescue, and bring hope and the gospel to children right there in Haiti, Guatemala, and Nicaragua through Cross International Partners. Your gifts are literally transforming lives. Now there's still some work to be done. A lot of children waiting to be fed for the next year, receive clean water, a Christian education, other life-saving resources, and there's room for you to call right now, 866-806-2977. We've still got a lot of children in this campaign that need your help. You can give on the web as well at wordfm.com, the Cross International banner, or one more time, here's the number to call, 866-806-2977.
Noble Gold Investments has made it their mission to stay on top of the most important economic news. 3 bank runs in the last month. These are the second largest and third largest runs in history. The government is taking steps to guarantee all deposits. That means more money printing. Plus, the Fed is sitting on unrealized losses of $1.2 trillion on their $8.3 trillion bond portfolio. And the Fed will continue to raise interest rates even if they tank the economy. Do you know who are the only ones not afraid? The ones that are invested in gold with Noble Gold Investments. Gold is the most stable asset outside of any government control. Thousands have approached Noble Gold Investments to get their hands on gold. Hurry and go to noblegoldinvestments.com to secure your wealth now. Use AIN Network as promo code if you want to get a free 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin with each gold or silver IRA if you qualify. noblegoldinvestments.com. noblegoldinvestments.com.
Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
On April 28th, experience the movie based on the miraculous story of George Foreman.
George Foreman ain't no new champ. He is the new chump. Foreman is down.
I'm not going to box anymore. I'm going to follow God. It's the greatest comeback story of all time.
There's only 2 things I know how to do. Box and preach. And preaching won't pay the bills.
Foreman's 45 years old. The risk isn't losing, it's surviving.
How can you beat that money?
I'm going to do this my way. Big George Foreman, exclusively in movie theaters, April 28th. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-235-5588. That's 800-235-5588. 800-235-5588.
look at home prices. An existing home price, I mean, here in Western Pennsylvania, the last several years, through the roof.
Coming down, apparently. Coming a little back down to earth. Yes.
I mean, for years, Western Pennsylvania, specifically Pittsburgh, was one of the best kept secrets in home buying in the entire country. You could buy a house here relatively, I mean, nationwide considering, relatively inexpensive. That's been the case for a long, long time. All right, I saw a piece today. This is how much it costs to build a new house in each state. Okay. And they're saying, this is from Lifehacker. They're saying, with the cost of buying an existing house, maybe it will be cheaper to buy a brand new house. Buy the plot of land that you want and then start from scratch exactly how you want it. So what they did was they went and they looked at, contractor prices, lumber prices, land prices, all these things. And then they did their math at Lifehacker, and then they sort of gave you a price per square foot for all 50 states. The cheapest place to build a new house, no surprise, would be Mississippi. Okay, pulling up from the end, from 50 forward, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana. Okay. And then, surprisingly, North Carolina.
Wait, that's a surprise. So many people, some snowbirds would build a place
happily
there.
Go to North Carolina, whether at the beach or in the Smoky Mountains. Then Florida, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota. Then West Virginia. Now, let me move forward quickly because, of course, time is always of the essence here, and tell you that Pennsylvania is the 35th least expensive state. 35 out of 50. Okay. So Pennsylvania, it cost $162 per square foot. The average price of new construction is $339,167. A brand new house. Okay. The most expensive place in the entire country to build a home, no surprise, Hawaii. What did I say? Pennsylvania was $167 per square foot. Hawaii is $205 per square foot. New price construction, $431,364.
What's after Hawaii?
Massachusetts. Okay. Then New Jersey. Then Illinois, like Chicago.
Illinois around Chicago.
Rhode Island, New York State, Connecticut, California, Washington State, New Hampshire, Minnesota. That's the top.
Wow, expensive to live in New England, huh?
Yep. Anyway, would you want to build a new house?
Listen, I don't think I would.
No, that's all.
I don't think that's
the energy
for me.
alone
to
go through that process.
Word FM, remembering Charles Stanley.
I value you enough to give my life to what God has called me to do so that you will be able to be stronger in your walk, find the will of God for your life, and to enjoy the goals that God will help you reach.
Celebrating the life and legacy of Charles Stanley.
Listen on your smart speaker at wordfm.com, the Word FM app, iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. In your car or at home, too, at 101.5 WORD-FM, Pittsburgh.
.com. Check it out.
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. There's been an evacuation of the American embassy in warring Sudan. It happened over the weekend. U.S. officials say American forces swept in and out of the capital, Khartoum, on Chinook helicopters. Secretary of State Blinken says it's hard to know exactly how many Americans are in Sudan, since they're not required to register.
We do know, of course, the number of Americans who have registered with us and with whom we're in very active communication. And of those, I would say some dozens have expressed an interest in leaving.
During the American embassy evacuation, no shots were fired, no casualties reported. Two moves by network news stations. Tucker Carlson is out at Fox and Don Lemon is out at CNN. This is SRN News.
If you've heard any of our radio commercials here on Word FM, you know that we like funny stories that make us smile. This is not one of those commercials. I read this week that over 1/3 of U.S. adults now owe more in credit card debt than they have saved. Add in the fact that milk and gas and kids' clothes and everything is out of control. And I think it's fair to say It's a scary time for a lot of good people. It's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage. And if that's you, I do believe a cash-out refinance, pulling out some of the value your home has earned the last few years, could be a saving grace. Yes, mortgage interest rates are up, but credit card rates are about 3 to 5 times higher. We've helped hundreds of listeners do this, using a cash-out to rid of the credit card debt and then saving some extra aside for the road ahead. And it's undoubtedly a life changer for many. If you'd like to chat about your situation, we are United Faith Mortgage.
United Mortgage Corp, Melville, New York. NMLS number 1330. Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Mortgage lender license 22672.
People ask me sometimes, Lance, I'm worried about my finances and I feel bad because I should be worried, right? I realize that inflation is going to be eating up money. I've got to do something to get around this crazy stock market and Biden's spending spree. Gold has, since the beginning of time, been the resource that God's people have relied on. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, is what the prophet Haggai said during a time of great shaking. To protect your retirement, I recommend that you diversify your 401k or IRA right out of paper assets and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with Gold IRA from the Birch Gold Group. I want you to text the words FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 and get a free info kit on gold IRAs. There's no strings attached to this, so just text FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 and see what I've discovered here about gold and its ability to stabilize your investment and create a storage of wealth for you in unsteady times.
Before I came to RPTS, I was a church planter and pastor for 22 years, and I found a lot of confusion about what really constitutes a church.
Dr. Barry York, president of RPTS.
We want, first and foremost, our ministers to know what a church is and what the church really needs, so how to develop the preaching ministry, why we practice the sacraments, how to properly care for God's people, and that you exercise proper oversight of them.
The church needs servants like you. Are you ready? Visit rpts.edu.
Are you looking to replace your old telephone system with the latest technology? At South Point Telecom, our phone systems feature auto answer and transfer to your desk and cell phone while recording and tracking all calls in and out. This is Don Hoder. With 30 years experience, I can quickly give you a price quote over the phone with no pressure or obligation. Ask about our security cameras and door access as well. Go to southpointtelecom.com.
A freeze warning remains in effect late tonight through tomorrow morning. Becoming clear and cold tonight. Early vegetation can be damaged by a freeze. The low 31. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 56. Plenty of clouds tomorrow night. Couple of late night showers. Low 37. A shower in spots Wednesday morning. Otherwise sun and clouds at a high of 56. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm forecaster Drew Shannon.
Welcome to another edition of The Ride Home with John and Kathy, live from the Salem Pittsburgh studios. And now here are your hosts, John Hall and Kathy Emmons.
Jury selection started today for the Tree of Life massacre. This has been a long, long time coming. More than 4.5 years have passed since the massacre in Squirrel Hill at the Synagogue of Tree of Life. And to reach this point is finally the slow wheels of justice moving forward.
It is slow.
So a lot of this hinges on the death penalty, right? Where the perpetrator, the murderer, I should say, was willing to plead guilty to these crimes if he would not be indicted or sentenced under a death penalty. Many of the families of the victims of Tree of Life said, no, this is what we're going to do. We have chosen under federal guidelines to look for the death penalty. And so now the perpetrator has pleaded not guilty, and the trial expected to start in a couple of weeks after the jury has been seated.
Yeah. Now, as I understand it, because initially, now this was a good year, maybe a year and a half ago, at that point, I thought that most of the families did not want to pursue a death penalty case. They wanted to just have a quick trial.
Which you would understand.
But the feds, it's very important to the federal government that this is prosecuted as a hate crime because they feel like their best chance of dealing with anti-Semitism is to make this a death penalty case so that people know that if they do this, then this is a death penalty future for you.
I mean, you can't say what goes through a mind of a crazy person who's intent on mass murder, as though life in prison or a death penalty
I know,
would
but
be
if
a deterrent.
imagine if you're the federal government, you want to deter this you want this to be a deterrent.
Thank goodness.
For any future situation as much as is humanly possible.
Right. I mean, I get it. Look, I drive by Tree of Life weekly, multiple times. The fences are still up. The building is closed now. They're about to undergo, finally, reconstruction of the building proper, and that will take years. It's just so long and so drawn out. And the heartache, that the scar that has been perpetrated on especially the Jewish community here in the city of Pittsburgh, will, of course, never go away. Those poor innocent people were gathering Shabbat, and they were ready to worship their God in peace. And that madman came bursting through the doors of that synagogue, intent on murdering as many people were in that synagogue.
And when police showed up and arrested him, he said, "I just wanted to kill Jews."
Right. I mean, I'm not a pro-death penalty person. I'm not.
No, I'm not either.
But
you know, it's funny in this instance because there's absolutely no question that he did it.
100%.
You know, it's not like that. This is a case that really has to be argued in a way that a lot of other ones would have to be.
As plain as the nose on your face.
Right.
So they're going to go. The hard thing is this trial is going to be so brutal for families because they're going to show crime scene photos, autopsy photos. It says you're going to go and take a deep dive into the murder of the people that you love.
I can't imagine having to live through that.
The brutality of what is about to come to us here, especially for those poor families. But justice will prevail, I do believe, in the end. Finally, it's here after 4.5 years.
Finally. We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll turn to our friend Dr. Ryan Burge, and we'll talk about losing faith in institutions, whether it's the Boy Scouts or the Catholic Church or whatever. Does that also mean that people are losing faith in God? All right, that's coming up next.
101.5 WORD.
Dr. Charles Stanley.
I plead with you in Jesus' name to ask him to forgive you of your sin. I plead with you to place your trust in Jesus to save you right now, to change your life. He'll change your eternal destiny.
The teaching of Dr. Charles Stanley on In Touch, helping you grow in Christ every day.
Tomorrow morning at 8:30 on 101.5 WORD.
Can you hear it? The cry of those living in darkness, in desperate need of hope. As their cries go up, we here at Cornerstone Television long to answer. We believe God is calling each of us for such a time as this to rise up and come to the battle line with the hope of Jesus Christ. Don't miss Cornerstone's Hope Arising special programming with Pastor Jim, Jason Howard, Matt Sorger, Apostle Connie Brooks, and Jay Gilbert. This is a special invitation for you to come to the battle line with us, to link arms and see hope arise. Our mission to reach the nations remains strong, but we can't fulfill our mission without you. Tune in April 24th through 28th at 8 p.m. and discover how to be a strong force of light in the darkness. Watch Hope Arising on Cornerstone Television Network. That's Verizon Fios Channel 505 or Channel 805 on Comcast Xfinity.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-626-5252. That's 800-626-5252. 800-626-5252.
At Chilled to Perfection in Oakmont, you can look perfect at any age. Safe, fast, and completely non-invasive. Chilled to Perfection is your all-natural way to target stubborn body fat, age spots, cellulite, acne, hair loss, and more. For a limited time, get a cryoskin treatment in the area of your choice, plus cryofacial for just $249. Defy your age, where your results are their business. Visit chilledtoperfectionpgh.com today.
Trust in God, but not believe in God? Is that a thing? Do you trust in God or not believe in God? Ryan Burge is a regular guest on our show. Dr. Burge is assistant professor of political science at Eastern Illinois University. He is the author of 20 myths about religion and politics in America and the nuns, where they came from, who they are, and where they are going. Ryan, Dr. Burge, welcome back. Good to see you.
Look at this, guys. Guess what? I just got in the mail today. Second edition.
Nice.
Yes.
Hot off the presses.
Nuns.
Very nice.
This is the first copy in the wild, guys.
Oh my gosh, this is super exciting. Congratulations, Ryan.
That's going to be a good feeling when a box shows up on your door after all these many months and months and months of writing, and you go, that's me. That's the best of me.
Second edition.
You know what? It is like a feeling like you'll never have in your life if you write a book and it actually, like, they publish it in a real form and it comes in the mail and you can hold it in your hand. It feels so different than just writing it on a digital page. Yeah. It's like, this really exists. I did this. And so today's a good day.
It's good. And the second edition means it lives beyond. It's got extra duty life now.
Man, the first one was like just a runaway success, like far beyond what I could ever ask or imagined. And this one is just kind of a product of the fact that people wanted more. Fabulous. And the data keeps evolving and the pattern of American religion always is changing. So it's good to be a religious demographer because nothing stays static in our world.
That is for sure. All right, Ryan.
Ryan.
And speaking of things not staying still, this issue of trust in institutions is something that I think of a lot. I go to a church that's part of a denomination, so it's not an independent type of church. The church I go to is on a college campus, the University of Pittsburgh, where I went to school, and I walk through campus a couple 2-3 days a week. The enormous Cathedral of Learning, which rises like a leprous. And I think to myself, I've been surrounded my whole adult life by these institutions that have shaped me. And at different times in my life, I had a high degree of trust and faith in them. And then at other points, like we had this a couple of conservative commentators who came to campus last week, and the most absurd demonstration broke out. It was so out of control. It was so mindless. It was so dumb. They decided the best way to express themselves was to block access to the hospitals that are in the university area. Anyway, it was just super stupid. Of course, then my trust dips. But that's what it is. Like, institutional faith and trust has gone up and down, I think, in all of us.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we don't. Democracy runs on trust, right? You've got to be able to trust that if the other party wins, they're not going to get to a situation where they lock you out of power forever. If the other party wins, and then we switch back and forth. Or if you go to the doctor, they're going to prescribe a medicine they think works the best for you, not based on what goes in their pocket. Or a professor is teaching you the best they know and how without some ulterior motive. Or if you go to church, you're going there because the pastor and the leadership really want you to have a spiritual experience and get better in life, not just put more money in the offering place that passes by every week.
Right.
And I think the problem with that, though, is we live in an age of rampant cynicism, right? We think that everyone's out for their own good. They're not really looking out for the greater good. If someone runs for office, it's always like, why are they lining their pockets? No one can do things for like an altruistic reason anymore. And it's a really terrible way to go through life, thinking that like everyone's out for themselves and no one's out for all of us. And they're really selfless people out there, and I think there are. It's just it's easier. The currency of the internet is being as cynical as possible, as pessimistic as you can be. I think it's infected us all, and I think it's gotten really deep in our DNA, and it's almost impossible to get out now.
Heck. Well, I remember, Ryan, I'm sure you're the same way. You know, anyone who's had some sort of curiosity or an intellectual awakening in somewhat, right? And you see, you know, the powers that be, whether it's, you know, state government, you know, the local district attorney's office or whatnot, you see that as a young person, you read into it, you gain a sense of confidence, and this is how the world is supposed to work. There's an order to all things. That confidence goes along with the trust. It feels as though we've lost confidence and trust in the basics of what it is to be a citizen in this country.
And that's so the institutional trust is one component of it. Interpersonal trust is the other component of it, which is like, do I trust the other person's not going to mug me or try to take advantage of me, right? Walking down the street, do I trust the other person's not going to commit violent acts against me? And interestingly enough, Kathy, you were talking about higher education. We know that people with higher levels of education have higher levels of trust. Now, the question is, did they get higher levels of education because they had more trust? Or did education sort of teach them to be more trusting? And it's hard to obviously, you know, disentangle those things. But what we know is it's easier to get ahead in society if you can trust other people and they reciprocate that trust back. Social networks have a tremendous value emotionally, spiritually, economically, from a democratic standpoint, little d democratic standpoint. If we don't trust each other, democracy cannot function, and we are scared, we are lonely, we are isolated, we are suspicious all the time, and that's not the way that we need to go through life.
Right, but you just described America in the 21st century.
Unfortunately, I think that's the problem is we think like all the cities in America are now hellscapes where you're going to be robbed and mugged and, you know, all these terrible things are going to happen to you and that everyone's going to try to take your money. They're always out like looking for the angle. Right. And I think religion has been, you know, at the receiving end of a lot of that, rightfully or wrongfully. I think religion's done a lot of unforced errors in the last 30 or 40 years, right? But I think a lot of it is religion just got swept up in the larger movement we've had in American society where we are less trusting of institutions. And I think that's hurt religion and it's hurt people. I think it's hurt society as well because they're not joining stuff anymore.
Yeah. As I was walking through campus day before yesterday, Ryan, I was looking up at the cathedral, as I said, and I was thinking about this friend of mine who grew up in a family where education wasn't a priority. And so when it came time for her to look into college, her parents were like, well, if you want to do that, like, go for it. But, like,
we can't help you.
They couldn't even, like, just the idea, there was no concept of how to do it, of how to take an SAT or how to apply or anything like that. And so I think that I look up at the Cathedral of Learning and I tend, my faith in an institution is increased because I was able to apply there. I was able to attend there. I was able to get a degree there. And so therefore I don't look at it as like a monstrosity or an enemy or something like that. But my friend will look at a building like that and it's different. It's like that's for other people or that's for the opposition or that, you know what I mean? That's something that's not for me.
So trust is also an emotional thing as well, deeply emotional.
Oh, I mean, I'm a first-generation college student as well, right? My parents could not help me understand, like, don't take one class at 8 a.m. and one class at 3 p.m. because you won't. You're gonna blow one of them off, and probably at 8 a.m. Right?
Yeah.
There's like little stuff like that. Like I had to fill out my own forms, my own financial aid forms when I was a kid.
Okay.
And obviously, I messed that up, and I probably missed out on those opportunities. And I do think that education is one of these areas where if you're not in, you're not in. I'll give you an example. 40% of political scientists have parents who are professors.
No
today.
way.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
40%.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it's a family business now. And what's funny is academia always like prides itself on like, you know, meritocracy, right? Like you can build your way to the top. It's a heck of a lot easier if both your parents have PhDs.
Yeah.
And I think it's just perpetuated this aristocracy in America. And we don't have the social mobility we think we have. I'm an outlier. And then I got a PhD being a first generation college student, but I made a lot of mistakes on the way that I won't let my kids make in terms of where I went, how I got there, and how I paid for it. And so it's going to hurt me long term being a first generation college student.
Dr. Ryan Burge is with us. Okay, so then let's turn our focus, Ryan, because you dig deep into what we talk about a lot here, which is faith. What about the people, you know, you're nuns, you've written a whole book about the nuns. You may not be a person of spiritual faith, but does that deny your existence, the idea of God in your life?
Yeah, so I wrote a post called trust and believe or not trust and believe, right? So does institutional trust run hand in hand with like belief in God? You know, if you give up on one, do you give up on the other, or vice versa, right? And what the data says is that, yeah, I mean, a lack of institutional trust is also correlated with a lack of certain belief in God. It's almost like everything that's foundational to like American life, if one piece crumbles, every other piece starts cracking as well and crumbling as well. So people who have very low confidence in religion also have very low confidence in God at the same time.
Really? Okay, so what about if a person's completely secular, one of the nuns, it's the same thing?
Yeah, so what's interesting is if you look for the share of Americans who say they have no confidence in organized religion and don't believe in God at all, it's only about 4% of Americans, though.
Okay.
Here's a stunning fact for a lot of people. 88% of Americans today still say they believe in God at some level. Okay, 88%. Even though the nuns... 88%, yeah. So when we ask you what you believe about God, they say either God doesn't exist or I can't know if God exists or not. That's 12% of Americans. 88% say they believe in God at least sometimes. So even though, like, I can give you stats like, 50% of Americans never go to church and, 30% of Americans are nuns, 48% of Generation Z are nuns, only 12% of Americans, from a vertical standpoint, a belief standpoint, say that God does not exist. We are stubbornly believing people in this country. Although I think if institutional trust continues to decline, I think we're going to see that certain belief in God also decline at the same time, because I don't think people are good at separating the institution from the higher power belief part of it.
I see. So, Ryan, you said in this country. So is America different than the rest of the free world in some way?
Oh, goodness gracious. I was talking to my students in religion and politics class last week about how we're weirdos. Like, you can learn nothing. Nothing you learn about American religion and politics can be translated to anywhere else on planet Earth.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, absolutely. We're one of the most economically prosperous countries on the planet, right? Easily in the top 5. But 52% of Americans believe in God, or say religion's very important to them. If you look at our comparative, countries, we should be less than 10%.
Really?
We are way more religious than we should be, or we're way richer than we should be. One of those two things has to be true. So when I study American religion and politics, I don't ever get asked to go speak internationally, because what I know does not translate to Western Europe or Sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia, because they understand religion completely differently than we do in America.
Interesting.
Okay, so I know this isn't maybe your specialty, but what's the difference? Like, why is America so unique in that way?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is that we never established a state church in America.
Got it.
If you want people to hate something, make it part of the government. Because we just don't like the government. And, most of Western Europe, which is where a lot of our, ideological thoughts come from, is Western Europe, they have state religion. In places like Germany now, you still pay taxes to the church in many parts of Germany, still to this day. And German religiosity, less than 10% of Germans go to church every week. So I think it's become like part of the establishment. So we never did that. And so instead, what we had is religious competition in this country. And if you look at America, we may be the most religiously diverse country on the planet. I mean, there are many counties when the largest religion might be 30% of the population or 40% of the population, which means that there's a lot of little 10, 20% religions out there. And when you compete, you got to get better. Right? The marketplace is not dominated by one player. So if you want to get market share, you got to preach better. You got to minister better. You got to reach out to the community better. And that competition, I think, really sharpened American religion in such a way that made some really good preachers and some really good churches and some really good ministries. I mean, Billy Graham's an American. Like, we need to be proud of that. He figured out how to reach out to those people. And if you don't have competition, there's not that kick in the pants of like, I got to get better to reach more people. America, we're all about competition. For good or bad, capitalism made religion in America a lot better than it could have been.
Interesting. So, Ryan, yesterday I was at a church service. There's a local church here in the city of Pittsburgh that yesterday celebrated its 250th anniversary as a church here in the city. It's the oldest institution by far. Now, what was interesting to me is, you're in this packed church. It was gorgeous. It was primarily, as you might imagine, a lot of gray heads. I mean, everyone was gray. There was a moment for the children's sermon at this 250th celebration. They invited the kids up. There were maybe 4 kids. This is what it's going to be like in America.
Yeah, I don't think people fully recognize what's happening to us, because it's happening so slowly. It's almost like, you look back and go, oh my gosh, what happened? Because every year in America, we're seeing older boomers die off who are 20% nuns, And then Gen Z is coming of age and becoming adults, and they're 48% nuns.
Wow.
And that's how American religion changes over time. It's not one big shift. It's just one death a month, 2 deaths a month, 3 deaths a month that are not being replaced by young people joining the church. All of a sudden, your membership goes from 200 to 170, from 170 to 125, and then 5 years later, it's under 100, and you go, what happened? Well, drip, 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 and eventually things change. And the problem with that is, it's like the old frog, how do you boil a frog?
Sure.
If the water's boiling, you throw it in, he's going to jump out. If you slowly turn it up, he'll boil to death. A lot of churches are being boiled to death so slowly, they're not realizing they're 5 down, 10 down, 20 down from a year ago, and those 20s add up over time, and then you get to the point you can't pay the light bill anymore.
So then Germany, as you're saying, 10% of the population in Germany, we will at some point become Germany?
I think if you look at the data, there's actually kind of a hard ceiling, it looks like, in the nuns around 48 to 50%. So even amongst Gen Z, it's not really gone up as they've aged into adulthood.
Okay.
And the oldest Gen Z are like 26, 27. So I think we're going to get to the point where half of Americans are non-religious and half of Americans are, but that's going to be divided between, Catholics and evangelicals and Muslims and Jews and Mormons and all these different groups where none of them are going to be like a significant, part of American life. Yeah. So, and I think that's what the future of American religion, half religious, half non. And the religious people got to figure out they're going to join forces on political issues and cultural issues, or they're going to fight each other on these issues. I think that's actually probably the most interesting question facing American religion and politics over the next 30 years is, do conservative Muslims and evangelicals join hands on certain things that they both disagree with to fight on the same team, or do they consistently see each other as enemies and try to fight against each other?
Interesting. So I saw an article in today's New York Times about this, that there's a Stuyvesant High School, which is a high school in Manhattan, and they're going to get rid of the requirement that there is you must learn how to swim to get your high school degree. And they're doing this because they've integrated the swim class, boys and girls, and there is a section of young Muslim women who are saying, we don't want the boys in the swim class. It's a religious issue to us. This in some ways is what you're talking about.
The undergrad school I went to, Greenville University, used to be chapel is mandatory 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And when enrollment went down, they started waiving chapel for a lot of kids who were on the fence. And I think you lost a lot of what Greenville was about because of that community. You met together 3 times a week and saw everyone and learned what we were doing and learned what was going on in the community and pray for people and be part of something. It's easy to do those things because the money wins out, right? We got to pay the bills. Right. But if you lose the character of what you are, then what do you have left? Even if you can keep the lights on, are you really who you said you were? And I think that's where a lot of these institutions are facing financial problems that make them not think financially, not ideologically about who they are.
Okay. All right, Ryan, we don't want to leave with a bad taste in our mouth.
And I have one question I have to ask him.
Is there a silver lining in all this? I mean, we're talking about the demise of faith in the fabric of who we are as America. Is there some good news at all?
I think there's a lot of young people who are realizing they need spiritual help. They need social help. They need to feel part of a community. And I call it the third space problem. First space is home. Second space is work. What's the third space? It used to be religion, or even the Moose or the Elks or the American Legion or the Bowling League. We have a third space problem in America. And I think a lot of people in my generation, older millennials and even younger millennials, are going, man, why am I not happy? Why do I not feel content? I need to find a place to be part of something. And I think you're going to see this happening with younger generations. They're going to go, we need to fix this problem. We need to find a third space. And here's religion all over the country with all these beautiful buildings ready to build and fix that third space problem. So I'm hopeful that this is the end of the rise of the nuns. I know that'll stop my publishing career, but it might be better for American society.
Right. Okay, one last question. The trial started today in Pittsburgh, Ryan, for the Tree of Life shooter. And, that was an absolutely, it's one of the worst days I can remember living in the city, as you can imagine. I'm sure every city that's had a mass shooting feels that way. But because it was particularly a religious hate crime, I'm wondering what that does to a community of faith. And I don't mean just the people who went to those synagogues, but I mean all of us in Pittsburgh who believe things. Like, does that change a ratio of nuns to believer? Or do you have any data on that?
No, I mean, my intuition is that has a polarizing impact. It'll actually drive some people away from going to houses of worship because they don't want to be possibly shot in the next mass shooting. But I think for a lot of people, even if they're on the fence about religion, they go, those people don't deserve that. They don't deserve to be massacred for what they believe in. And I think it actually engenders good feelings about religion, generally speaking. Now, if that brings people actually back to the pews is a whole different story, but it definitely moves sentiment more in the direction of religious people should be safe to worship in their own spaces without fear of mass shootings. Right. So I think, generally speaking, those might actually help religion in the long term, because I think even the average American who's a nun still thinks religion holds a place in society and they deserve some rights and responsibilities and to be protected.
It's interesting you say that, because in reading today's paper about this trial that's about to get underway, is that, there were 3 congregations within the synagogue, and someone quoted saying, since this has happened to our congregation, we have seen a rise, that people have come back who have left the congregation. We've seen a rise of people who want to worship with us again. So what you're saying has some truth.
Yeah.
Ryan Burge is with us. Ryan, 20 myths about religion and politics in America, and you can hold it up again, the nuns, where they came from, who they are, and where they are going.
Second edition. We're celebrating it.
Right there at the bottom. Second edition.
I like it.
Very nice.
I have a Substack now, graphsabout.religion.com. I write 2 or 3 pieces on there every week, data-driven charts and graphs, little words about what's going on in American religion. I got a piece about guns, God, and graft coming out this week, so I'm thinking about this issue a lot.
As a young adult, thanks, Ryan. Colleges, of course, are extremely pivotal. It's the time to discover who you are, and if you're fortunate and you are involved in Christian life, to discover your God-given calling in life. Because the world calls and says, oh, your college career is all about your future self and making your income to provide for your life. But of course, life is much more than that.
And there are seemingly limitless numbers of colleges that will help your child down that path to figure out how to make the most money,
success.
Right, to find the most jobs, all those sorts of things. All important things to consider. However, how many schools are there that are going to help your child prepare to go out into the world, to be an effective witness for Christ, to be a person who's able to work in their chosen field in a way that is a calling, whether they're being trained as a mechanical engineer or they're being trained as someone in business or an elementary school teacher, whatever it is, looking at that job as their vocation that is given to them by God, and that God can work through them in a magnificent way because of their own individuality. How many colleges are going to prepare a child to look at it that way?
That would be Grove City College. Eternal biblical truth in all the teachings, gcc.edu, Grove City College.
Can you hear it? The cry of those living in darkness, in desperate need of hope. As their cries go up, we here at Cornerstone Television long to answer. We believe God is calling each of us for such a time as this to rise up and come to the battle line with the hope of Jesus Christ. Don't miss Cornerstone's Hope Arising special programming with Pastor Jim, Jason Howard, Matt Sorger, Apostle Connie Brooks, and Jay Gilbert. This is a special invitation for you to come to the battle line with us, to link arms and see hope arise. Our mission to reach the nations remains strong, but we can't fulfill our mission without you. Tune in April 24th through 28th at 8 p.m. and discover how to be a strong force of light in the darkness. Watch Hope Arising on Cornerstone Television Network. That's Verizon Fios Channel 505 or Channel 805 on Comcast Xfinity.
Terry Wargenis here from the Gateway Clipper. Celebrate Mom with a family aboard a Mother's Day cruise, sailing Sunday, May 14th. All moms will receive a special gift from all of us at the Clipper. For reservations, visit gatewayclipper.com.
Ask Alexa to play the word Pittsburgh to hear us there. We're on your Google speaker too, plus iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. 101.5 WORD-FM, Pittsburgh.
A freeze warning remains in effect late tonight through tomorrow morning. Becoming clear and cold tonight. Early vegetation can be damaged by a freeze, the low 31. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a high of 56. Plenty of clouds tomorrow night. Couple of late night showers, low 37. A shower in spots Wednesday morning, otherwise sun and clouds at a high of 56. with your AccuWeather forecast. I'm forecaster Drew Shannon.
This makes sense.
Does what make sense?
A pedicure.
Well,
This is good.
I mean, I've never had a pedicure.
Okay.
For some people, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And who are those people?
People that are not me.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I do appreciate good foot health.
Right.
And I think probably a pedicure would be instrumental in that.
It seems like it might even be essential in that.
Now, you and I have talked about the koi, the fish that eat the...
That's one of the worst experiences of my life.
So when you go get a pedicure, it's more than just someone painting your nails?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's foot hygiene. It's just foot maintenance. It's total maintenance.
In all the years that you've had pedicures, how many years has that been? Decades?
Decades.
Have there ever been men in the room?
Oh, yeah.
Men getting pedicures?
Oh, sure.
Really?
Yes. Now, not nearly. I would say it's 5% to 95%.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But consistently, there are men there.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I might be interested. I might be interested. I mean,
it makes so much sense. You don't even know how much sense it makes.
I'm very foot-centric, as you might imagine.
Of course.
I've suffered through some things. And I go, well, okay, I would...
You should reconsider your point of view on how much sense a pedicure makes.
My birthday's coming up. Maybe I'll ask for that as a little
terrific
thing there.
I'll introduce you to my friend Tiffany.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's I agree. It also makes sense.
All right. Does this make sense? A professional cornhole tournament. Now, I like cornhole. We play in the backyard, right? We throw the bean bag through the little... And then I'm watching TV the other day, and there are like these pros. I mean, it's like sponsored. There's money on the line all of a sudden. I'm like, wait, as a kid, I used to like to play wiffle ball. So like, is it like a professional wiffle ball tournament? Is everything that is like enjoyable become something else that's beyond, like, for the pros to take care of?
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you?
No. What are we seriously?
Well, I mean,
come on. It's a little bit of a stretch.
But when you see them,
this isn't like the snowmobile in the Winter Olympics. Seems like there's a little extra level of expertise that you need to do women's gymnastics.
Well,
than professional cornhole.
You do have to have a skill set to be able to throw it through the, down there. And
I'm
throw
not
it through
saying
the hole.
it's not a skill set. Do we really need to have a professional league?
People watch.
101.5 WORD.
How are we supposed to respond when our lives are not on the timeline we expected them to be on? Well, Rachel Faulkner Brown knows what that feels like.
I will tell you, you lose a husband, bury a husband, you become like an old lady. I had done things that people don't do till they're 70.
Yeah.
And so when you go to the funeral home and you pick out a casket, you just age.
Finding hope in our grief. Next time on Family Life Today with Dave and Ann Wilson.
Tomorrow morning at 9 on 101.5 Word FM WORD.
Quote based on healthy, non-smoking 30-year-old female with a 20-year term policy. Rates may vary. Eligible policies and estate planning tools can vary by state.
It's a busy life. You have enough to worry about. So here's a great way to check life insurance off your list. It's called Ethos. With the thought of medical exams, forms to fill out, and the cost, it's easy to see why life insurance can fall to the bottom of your to-do list. But at Ethos Life, we've got your back. For about $1 a day, you could get $250,000 in term life insurance without a medical exam. Just go online, answer a few health questions, and snap! Family protected. You could get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and be covered in hours. No medical exams, no blood tests, no hassle. Right now, with your purchase of an eligible policy from Ethos, you'll get something else important to your family. Tools to create a legal will. A $449 value, yours free. Ethos, the 100% online, hassle-free way to get affordable life insurance. Get your free online quote now at ethoslife.com. That's ETHOS life.com.
Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
On April 28th, experience the movie based on the miraculous story of George Foreman.
George Foreman ain't no new champ. He is the new chump. Foreman is down.
I'm not going to box anymore. I'm going to follow God. It's the greatest comeback story of all time. There's only two things I know how to do. Box and preach. And preaching won't pay the bills.
Foreman's 45 years old. The risk isn't losing, it's surviving.
How can you beat that man?
I'm going to do this my way. Big George Foreman, exclusively in movie theaters, April 28th. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
Inflation is pushing up the cost of just about everything, but life insurance actually costs less today than it did a few years ago. Now is the time to get the insurance you need. Call Select Quote and we'll help you save more than 50% on term life insurance. You can get up to $2 million in same-day coverage with no medical exam.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-646-9595 or go to SelectQuote.com now. That's 1-800-646-9595. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
Guys, if you're frustrated with online dating, give Pittsburgh Singles a try. If you're between 38 and 43, single, Christian, educated, and family-oriented, Pittsburgh Singles has two particular VIP women you might want to meet. These beautiful, educated, local Christian women are looking for the same thing you are, the possibility of forever love with someone who shares their faith and values. Could that be you? Take 3 easy steps to find out with Pittsburgh's premier matchmaking service at pittsburgh-singles.com.
As evidenced by our last guests, we like numbers, surveys, opinion pieces. And I saw a piece that was published last week. They're the happiest people in America, and we called them to ask why. So there was a survey, the Wall Street Journal and something called NORC poll, which they do apparently yearly. America's happiest people have a few traits in common. They value community and close personal relationships.
Okay.
They believe in God, and they are generally older, often in retirement years.
Whoa. Okay. So that's 3 things?
Believe.
They value community.
And close relationship.
Okay.
Tend to believe in God, and are often older or in their retirement years. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they took this poll, and they found that a small group of Americans, just 12% in this poll, would describe themselves as not just happy, but very happy. 12%. So the 12% was the smallest share of very happy people ever recorded in this poll that goes back to 1972. 1,019 adults in the survey, large majorities said that they felt pessimistic about the economy and prospects for the next generation. 30% of those 1,019, 30% at the lowest level of happiness said they were not too happy. A majority, though, some 56% said that they were pretty happy. So all this makes that slice of very happy people stand out. What do they know that the rest of us don't? Overwhelmingly, the very happy people value strong relationships. Some 67% say marriage is very important to them, regardless of their own marital status, compared with 43% of respondents overall. They tend to say that their belief in God is very important. 2/3 describe themselves as very or moderately religious of those very happy people.
How many? What's the percentage?
2/3 describe themselves as very happy. Describe themselves, as moderately or very religious, compared with less than half of the adults overall. Community involvement rates are more important among those very happy than among those who report lower levels of happiness. So being part of something larger than yourself, your church community, your community at large, your hometown, right? Or your town. So, the Wall Street Journal, they went out and they started calling people who build themselves as very happy. And they say this. Here, this is from someone who says, I'm very happy. Marianne D. Pasquale, who's 76. She's a retired medical secretary. She said, quote, "We're living on Social Security, my husband and I, and a couple of small pensions. We live from month to month on that, and we don't want for anything. So, of course, we are very happy people." I'll go in a little bit deeper. So what they did was they went and found these people here, and they published photographs of them.
Okay.
And they dug a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So here's a guy. He's 77 years old. His name oddly is Larry Old.
Okay.
And Larry Old says, "I live by myself on a 7-acre plot. I'm kind of a loner. I can hang out at my house by myself for days on end. I live in the home where I was raised, and I call it a source of my contentment. I've got all kind of great memories in this house. I recall waking at 4 o'clock to feed the chickens and milk the cows. In later years, he grew close to his mom while they were helping her fight cancer. He is divorced. He has good friends, a few good friends rather than a lot of friends. And he says, I've got strong roots in this area, of course, because I grew up. He says, I pray every night. If I have medical problems, I take it to God. He says that I attend church occasionally, but most of my friends are from my church. I think that's pretty common, right?
Yeah.
Here's someone who is sort of bucks the trends of very happy. This person is 35 years old. Her name is Latasha McCorkle, and she says, only worry about what you can control. She says, people can learn to be happy. She said, I did not grow up around happy people. Those around her drank, did drugs, smoked cigarettes. She said, I just wanted to find my own joy and be centered within me and not depend on anything outside of me. I take pride on that I can take care of myself. She says she tries to keep herself removed from the grievances of others, such as road rage on the highway. Only guiding through that, she says, the key thing for me is I only worry about what's in front of me and what I can control.
Oh, good for her. That's extremely healthy mind.
She says, I'm not as religious as I was raised, but I do understand that I'm here on earth having a spiritual experience. I'm here to go through life and experience of what it all has to offer. Very happy. How do you make yourself, how do you strive to be a very happy person? The Wall Street Journal says these things. These are key.
Value community and close relationships, believe in God, and most of them are older. Okay, I did not read that article, so I was just listening to you talk about it like all of our listeners. A couple things jumped to mind. The first thing is, if valuing community and close relationship and believing in God are things that contribute to very happiness,
yes,
very much happy, our role as Christians in telling people about God in our churches should be easy.
Probably a lot easier than we're making it.
Yeah. You
want to be happy? Hang out with us.
Right.
Learn more about God and be part of our community as we go through this together. I think probably, just like from the outside looking in, people who aren't part of a church community, who've never been part of a church community, or maybe have been burned in a church community go, that's too hard for me to walk into. Too hard for me to sort of create community.
That's like a club that I'm not a part of?
Yeah, like they know each other already. So if I show up on a Sunday morning, especially I think if you've never been churched, how difficult that must be to walk into a church.
Right. Oh, I can't imagine. It would be like walking into a group of non-native English speakers.
Right. You'd be at sea.
Or people who don't speak English at all. You feel like this is a whole different world. I wonder, again, this comes up in our conversation pretty often on the show, is that when people who are outside the church look at us who are inside the church, it's often with a suspicion that we're judging.
Yeah.
Well, that person thinks that I'm a drunk. That person is mad I'm gay.
Or they said I'm a sinner.
That person said I'm right. That person said. I remember a guy coming into our church a couple years ago, and he was clearly drunk or on something, and it was time to go in to the sanctuary. We were kind of milling around talking, and he said, my husband said, well, it's time for church. Why don't you come in and worship with us? It was his first time. And he said, oh, no, I'm on something. Like, I can't go in there. And my husband said, if you're on something, if you need help, this is the place to go. So come on in with us because we're all here and we all need help.
Did he come in?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe if we had more of that and less of the, like, we look like the morality police.
Well, see, so that goes to the heart of that campaign.
What
gets
campaign?
Us.
Oh.
Don't you think? When I see that, I go, oh, yeah. They do a good job, I think, of demystifying and showing us as broken and confused and as wretched as the rest of the world.
Yeah.
The only difference is...
No, I agree. That's a good point.
Right.
But how many Christians hate those ads? A lot.
What's the problem?
Because they don't feel like it's theologically pure enough.
I mean, well then...
That might be why people think you're the morality police or the theology police.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't have to be hitting all the perfect points of your theology to be acceptable.
I mean, if I'm going to get to heaven and there's going to be, people debating theology, that's not going to happen in heaven. That's all going to be gone. Just get in there at first, right? Be part of that community. People, I know theology is extremely important. Look, we
have a show. Yeah.
Based upon that.
Right.
But major in the...
Exactly. Don't major in the minors.
Yeah, people do that to our detriment, to all of our detriment.
1 Corinthians 15. I see these as issues of primary importance. Let's stick to those primary things and leave the secondary things to the secondary things.
And maybe you will be one of those very happy people. Maybe.
Coming up next, it's our National Poetry Month offering. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Jason Hansen. I'm a former CIA officer and best-selling author on safety and preparedness. The fact is, things are getting downright scary for everyone who's storing their wealth in the banks. We just saw the collapse of 3 major banks, and I would urge you to consider protecting your wealth ASAP. If even a tiny percentage of Americans attempt to withdraw their savings, we would see a collapse of the entire banking system, sending us into a modern-day Great Depression. Fortunately, there is a way for you to avoid this. It starts with contacting Advantage Gold. If you have an IRA or 401k, Advantage Gold can help convert those paper assets into physical gold and silver. This is the process that I recommend everybody use as a hedge against rapid inflation and to protect your retirement wealth from the banks. Take control of your financial safety today. Call 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit from Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before investing.
Call 800-900-8000.
Can you hear it? The cry of those living in darkness, in desperate need of hope. As their cries go up, we here at Cornerstone Television long to answer. We believe God is calling each of us for such a time as this to rise up and come to the battle line with the hope of Jesus Christ. Don't miss Cornerstone's Hope Arising special programming with Pastor Jim, Jason Howard, Matt Sorger, Apostle Connie Brooks, and Jay Gilbert. This is a special invitation for you to come to the battle line with us, to link arms and see hope arise. Our mission to reach the nations remains strong, but we can't fulfill our mission without you. Tune in April 24th through 28th at 8 p.m. and discover how to be a strong force of light in the darkness. Watch Hope Arising on Cornerstone Television Network. That's Verizon Fios Channel 505 or Channel 805 on Comcast Xfinity.
Foreman is the heavyweight champion of the world.
On April 28th, experience the movie based on the miraculous story of George Foreman.
George Foreman ain't no new champ. He is the new chump. Foreman is down. I'm not going to box anymore. I'm going to follow God.
It's the greatest comeback story of all time.
There's only 2 things I know how to do. Box and preach. And preaching won't pay the bills.
Foreman's 45 years old. The risk isn't losing, it's surviving.
How can you beat that money?
I'm going to do this my way. Big George Foreman, exclusively in movie theaters, April 28th. Rated PG-13. May be inappropriate for children under 13.
My name is Jason Hansen. I'm a former CIA officer and New York Times bestselling author. You can protect your hard-earned retirement assets with a tax-free loophole that allows you to convert your retirement into physical gold and silver. Advantage Gold is the nation's highest-rated gold company. They have the best process, pricing, and service. If you want to get your free gold and silver investment kit, please contact Advantage Gold right now. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before investing.
Call 800-900-8000.
April is National Poetry Month. And I go back to when our kids were super little, and we read nonstop. I mean, we had more books stacked around the house. Let's read this story. Let's read that story. And we often settled on Shel Silverstein.
Oh, did you?
I'm a fan. You a fan?
Sure.
Now, it's approachable for a lot of, because Shel Silverstein he works on a lot of different levels. I mean, the illustrations in his books, fabulous. But his writing is so, I would just say, fun. Here's a
Is it a Giving Tree?
Yes.
Okay.
This is called Messy Room. Whosever room this is should be ashamed. His underwear is hanging on the lamp. His raincoat is there in the overstuffed chair, and the chair is becoming quite mucky and damp. His workbook is wedged in the window. His sweater's been thrown on the floor. His scarf and one ski are beneath the TV, and his pants have been carelessly hung on the door. His books are all jammed in the closet. His vest has been left in the hall. A lizard named Ed is asleep in his bed, and his smelly old sock has been stuck to the wall. Whosever room this is should be ashamed. Donald or Robert or Willie or... Huh? You say it's mine? Oh, dear. I knew it looked familiar. Shel Silverstein.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And kids love that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because there it is. You think it's one thing, and then it quickly, how he always does. Shel Silverstein's good. In a heartbeat, he turns it around.
Right.
Will you identify?
So don't be afraid of poems, right? Some of them are super fun.
No.
All right, speaking of not being afraid, John, I've got a couple celebrity birthdays for you today.
Okay.
On this day, April 24th, two vocalists are celebrating a birthday.
Okay. Together?
Well, I don't think together. I'm not sure if they're friends. Kelly Clarkson is celebrating a birthday today.
Oh, boy,
Kelly Clarkson, American Idol. I believe she was American Idol, wasn't she? Yes, she was.
I don't know much about Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, okay. She's a TV star now. She was on The Voice. She's a terrific singer. Any idea how old Kelly Clarkson
Well,
would be?
since I know nothing about her, I'll just take a shot in the dark.
Okay.
I'll say she's, I'm going to go far away. She's 46.
No, she's 41.
Okay.
So that's not too bad,
Right.
John.
Okay.
And today's Barbra Streisand's birthday.
People
who need people.
Now listen, Funny Girl.
I hate that song.
How about Funny Girl, the movie?
It's okay.
It's a great movie.
Okay.
Come on.
I have a little bit of a hard time with her. But
Well,
she's
you could. Of course
she's
you should.
epically talented.
Oh, my gosh.
Epically talented. I know that. But she's just so abrasive.
Well, she grew up in that era where, I mean, when she came on the scene, I mean, she was a superstar.
Yes, she
Right?
is a superstar.
Yeah.
How old do you think she is today?
Barbara's getting up there.
Is she?
This might be a big one. She's 80.
She's 81? That surprised me.
No, it didn't surprise. No.
Yeah. In my head, she was like 71.
Really?
But that's not
Okay,
the
no.
case. No, she's 81.
Well, happy birthday to Kelly Clarkson and Barbara Streisand.
And Barbra Streisand.
All right. That's a lot of candles.
Who are
on
you
the
going to
cake.
listen to tonight if you're picking one?
Barbra Streisand, but I'm not going to.
I'm
I mean,
picking
if I
Kelly.
had to, really.
Oh, yeah, I am.
All right. Have a great night.
Ride Home with John and Kathy, a production of Salem Media Group.
This is Seth Leibson of AM 960 The Patriot in Phoenix for townhall.com. The next time you hear Democrats and their media allies say Republican governors and legislatures are trying to ban books in schools, ask them if they are prepared to allow 5- and 6-year-olds to attend rated R movies. The point is simple. Rated R movies are not banned movies. They are restricted. Restricted because of age-inappropriate material and content. Now, given the content of some of these books Democrats and others say are being banned in the early grades, ask yourself if elementary schools should also be allowed to show explicit movies in their schools. There used to be a left-right consensus about exposing children to inappropriate content. Even Bill Clinton understood this when he said at his State of the Union speech, quote, "When parents control what their young children see, that is not censorship. That is enabling parents to assume more personal responsibility for their children's upbringing." Close quote. That's a principle and conviction that today's Democrats have abandoned. It's harmful and